A bit of breaking news as backup Penn State quarterback Beau Pribula is set to enter the transfer portal. He's officially announced it. And this is a big deal because it has strong implications for not only the future of Penn State, but the present in this college football playoff run.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of the show, and this is a live edition to talk about the breaking news. There's no way to get in front of this one. Beau Pribula announces the news was broken by 24/7 on 3. And now Beau Pribula has released an official statement. So let me know your thoughts, comments, reactions. We'll talk about it here in this live show to react to it. And of course, this is not ideal news for Penn State. It does lead to the belief that Drew Allar is going to return. That's what everybody's thinking here is that, well, why would Beau Pribula enter the transfer portal here in the winter window as opposed to the spring window now? But this has bigger implications than just, Penn State is going to have presumably Drew Allar back for 2025. Okay, so that is some good news here. But I want to think about the present first. Beau Pribula is an important part of this team. And going through this 2024 playoff run, which I believe Penn State has a legitimate shot, part of that has to do with a favorable path. SMU, Boise State, and the teams that they would match up with in a hypothetical semifinal, Penn State has one of the best odds to actually make the college football championship and then let the chips fall where they may. Beau Pribula was going to be a part of this, and he should have been a part of this. And the interesting twist to all of this is that he is departing early from the team, so he will not be with the team through this college football playoff run. That is a big deal in my mind. Forget about 2025 for a second. Drew Allar, you just took a massive hit to your quarterback depth chart at the most important part of the season. And I am not here to blame Drew, or I'm not Drew. I'm not here, in Drew in this case, if he decides to make that decision to come back, but there's no blame for Drew that he should go off to the NFL or come back to college football for another season. That's his decision. That is his right to make that decision. And Beau Pribula was never going to take the starting job away from him. All the way from the beginning at this quarterback battle to now in the present and to the future. Number two in all of this, I don't blame Beau Pribula for wanting to focus on his future. If he knows that his future is not at Penn State, the way the transfer portal window is set up, it does not make for an ideal scenario. There are no winners in this case. There are no winners in this case. Beau Pribula is doing what is best for his future and getting a head start to further his career. But what this does in the process is now Penn State is left, I don't want to say scrambling, but you are banking on the fact that, Drew Allar's not going to get hurt. Is Ethan Grunkemeyer ready to go in the game if they need him to? Hasn't seen any live game action. He's just been a really good scout quarterback, and I know that James Franklin has praised him. And it seems like Grunkemeyer is going to be the quarterback of the future after Allar now. But in the present, Beau Pribula did more effective game changer to an extent. I know that Lion package wasn't always efficient, but you at least had it in your arsenal. And now that it's completely gone, Is Grunkemeyer going to run it? Are they going to use Tyler Warren more? Probably. You're going to have to, but now you don't have that element of surprise. Now you don't have that insurance policy if Drew Allar does happen to get an injury and you have Wisconsin 2.0. I'm not trying to jinx it, but you have to be able, the best college football teams, the best teams in any sport can win in a variety of ways. And one of the variety of ways that Penn State could win was that, hey, you always have a capable, competent quarterback ready to go to run this offense. And honestly, one that Andy Kotelnicki has designed for him to get the best of his strengths. This is a big deal. I don't like, and now, would I accept it more if Beau was happening to stay with the team and going to leave after the college football playoff season? Probably. I mean, that's why this matters even more, because he's leaving now. He's stepping away from the team now That was confirmed by On3 and then him personally in the statement. So this hurts Penn State now. Long term, it really doesn't do much. It was either going to be, okay, it was speculated that Aller was going to come back, and truth be told, nothing is official until it's official. It's not official until Drew Aller announces that he is going to come back. Now, does that mean that the odds are in Penn State's favor to retain Drew Aller for another season and that Drew's going to try to boost his NFL's draft status? With a good postseason run, I'm not exactly sure what Aller's hearing, but I really thought that he could be someone that could be taken in the first round if he continues the trend that he's on. He's significantly improved. Scouts and draft analysts are starting to move them up their big boards. Whatever you think of Mel Kiper over at ESPN, he has him as quarterback number 4 in his latest mock draft, if you will, or just draft analysis. So Drew is trending in the right direction, and he could have gone in 2025. I've always said that if Beau Pribula ends up transferring and Drew stays around for another season, that something went wrong. This wasn't supposed to happen this way. This is not how this was supposed to happen. This was supposed to be Drew Aller started for 2 seasons, left after his true junior season. He was not supposed to make it to his senior campaign. Everyone should be excited that, hey, you're getting a veteran quarterback, a 3-year starter back, and a second consecutive season with the coordinator that has taken his game to the next level. Andy Kotelnicki and Drew Aller work. But in a short sample size, so does Beau Pribula and Andy Kotelnicki. Andy Kotelnicki, I feel like almost any quarterback can fit into his offense here. But this is the fact of the matter. This is the age of college football that we live in. I don't blame Beau Pribula for making this decision. It stings Penn State in the present. We can talk about Drew Aller being at Penn State, hypothetically, because nothing's official until it's official. I don't see any reports that say Drew Aller's is staying for one more season. What I do find interesting is the discourse around Ethan Grunkemeyer throughout this entire season. Anytime there's a question that's been asked of me, so I kind of more or less presumed that even if Drew did go off to the NFL, Beau wasn't securely going to be the starting quarterback going into next season. I very well expected James Franklin to open it up, whether it's the pseudo quarterback battle just to not hand over the reins to Beau Pribula. But because the way that they talk about Ethan Grunkemeyer and what I've seen in practice and what other people agree with when we talk about Grunkemeyer is that he is legit and can be a very capable starting quarterback down the road. So does that mean one way or another that Beau Pribula, whether it's Aller returning or maybe he didn't want to get into a quarterback battle? That's a lot of speculation. Drew should come back based on this decision, because I don't think Beau would have entered the portal now and left the team had that not been the case. Because I think Beau Pribula can deal with the idea of a potential quarterback battle with someone he has one more year of experience then. I don't think he's afraid of Ethan Grunkemeyer. And I don't think he's afraid of Drew Aller, but you have to look at the writing on the wall. You were not going to start. Were you just going to be a gadget player at Penn State? If your heart and soul is in Pennsylvania, and I get it, he was born and raised, Penn State's his dream school, it is really a shame. I don't like this any more than he does. I'm sure I don't want to say that he's heartbroken, but this is a business decision. And if he wants to play and start for his redshirt junior and senior seasons and try to prove to somebody that he belongs in the pros, this is what he has to do. It affects Penn State in the short term. Nothing really changes in the long term. Well, aside from the fact that the depth chart is going to be, okay, Drew Aller and Ethan Grunkemeyer. Beckham Kritza, depth chart stays about the same. We're going to take a timeout. We'll look at your questions, comments, reactions to this. Short term, not good news for Penn State. You hope that the worst of the worst does not happen, and I'm not saying that Grunkemeyer couldn't handle it now by coming in, but you are hoping for the best, that Drew Aller can play all of these games. We saw what happened against Wisconsin. Fortunately, that was just a half that he did not play, and he doesn't have any lingering effects from that knee injury. But you don't have that insurance policy anymore. And now Penn State is going into the most important part of the season. Beau Pribula was a difference maker. He nearly scored in that Big Ten championship game against Oregon. Do not tell me that he wasn't valuable or, because those gadget plays didn't work all the time. it doesn't matter. You still had to scheme for it. You still had to game plan for it. And now as an opponent, that is good news for an opponent. Any opponent that looks at this Penn State team and they say, well, we don't have to pay attention to that. We don't have to worry about that part of the playbook from Andy Kotelnicki. We can scrap it and focus our attention to other things. Not an ideal situation for Penn State, but it's the current age of college football. All right, I promised you a break, and we're going to take your questions and comments on the other side. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can keep tackling the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and you will get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. And it's all on the same page where you place your bets. It's that convenient. It's that simple. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And if we look over at FanDuel.com, Penn State and SMU lines are posted. You can see that Penn State is an 8.5-point favorite against the Mustangs. Minus 330 on the money line. If you're thinking SMU, plus 260. The total is set at 53.5. There's not a lot of line movement here. It's been at 8.5 for the most part over the first week since it's been released. Same thing with the total. 8.5 and 53.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com. And remember, you will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's talk about it more. Get your reactions. You're a part of this conversation just as much as I am. Shocking news on an NFL Sunday. Eagles and Steelers played, and then there's a bunch of Penn State news. Oh, we got to go all the way to the top. Thank you so much for contributing your thoughts. I'm going to try to get to as many people as possible. Does Drew stay or does he go now? I would imagine, based on Beau Pribula making this decision, that there's a strong indication that Drew is coming back. That would have to be my guess. I don't have any insider information. What I do know is that it seemed like Drew was going off to the NFL. And then there was a buzz, if you will, that this was a 50-50 decision. And then it turned to probably in the most recent weeks that Drew was leaning on coming back. And I think that it definitely took a stronger turn when Andy Kotelnicki announced that he was coming back and not taking the West Virginia job. Got to think this strongly implies that Drew is back, yes. Because as I mentioned before in the previous segment, Beau does not leave right now if Drew goes off to the NFL. Even the idea of the quarterback battle, Ethan Grunkemeyer, it's a 50-50 chance. You still have spring football, right? I don't think Beau runs from the competition. And I don't think Beau is running from this at all. This is a business decision for him. The chance to make NIL as a starter somewhere. And who knows what... I can't say that he's just going to land at some group of 5 school. There very well might be a Power 4 school that would take him. I think he can start. He was winning. He won a game against Wisconsin, coming off of the bench cold. He can definitely be a Power 4 starter somewhere. We're all in agreement here. That's my thinking too. Thank you, Dustin, for checking out the show. You would think unless he gets a first or a second round grade, I've seen some people put him as high as 30 and the number 3 quarterback, or he would want to wait and try to go for the top spot next year. Depends. I mean, so Drew is in an interesting spot because I don't know how you pass up on a first round draft spot. We've seen Olu Fashanu do it to an extent. You talk to the scouts, these guys are having conversations with people at the next level that we will never know the true information of, the true intent of. So Drew obviously heard something that says it is better for him. And I will disclose, okay, very briefly, I bumped into a Chicago Bears scout at one of Penn State's games. It was the Ohio State game. And I just said, hey, I know you have Caleb Williams, quarterback's fine. Any thoughts on Drew Aller based on this game? And he said, well, because I'm not here to scout quarterbacks, actually, I can't give you an honest opinion. But there were some things that I liked that I saw. I do think it would benefit him immensely if he came back for another season. That was the key right there. He said that Drew's a young quarterback. He should probably come back for another season at Penn State. So That's a Bears scout not really doing due diligence here, saying that. I know they have Caleb Williams, but a scout just being honest and transparent saying Aller probably should come back. And the scouts, it's different. Mock draft analysts, they can be wrong. They're going to keep their job. It's like being a weatherman to an extent. But when you're a scout and you're in the front office, you can't get these things wrong. So trust the opinion of a scout over anybody that you see putting together a mock draft. That's where I will say that. Plus, Troy Huhn in 2026, if he stays committed, could be a stud. Well, he likes Penn State, obviously, because I can't obviously project that anything won't change here, but for someone to commit this early for the class of 2026 has to mean that he likes what James Franklin is doing with the program and likes Penn State a lot. And does this also mean that Grunk is coming on strong? Yes, I can confirm that just based on the way that James Franklin lights up. I mean, James Franklin lights up whenever we ask a question about Ethan Grunkemeyer. And it's there in practice too. Good with his reads, right? We don't get to see, full 7-on-7 scrimmages or anything, or, scout offense versus defense. But to see the way that he goes through his progressions, mechanics, all those kinds of things, he's checking a lot of boxes off as a true freshman. But listen to Franklin. The telltale sign is listen to Franklin anytime he speaks about Grunkemeyer. Listen to him say it. So if after Drew Aller, Penn State has a pretty good contingency plan long term. And I mean, we didn't even get to talk about Bryce Baker choosing North Carolina, bunch of different factors there, but you can understand why Bryce Baker didn't even want to go into this quarterback room when he has a chance to start as a true freshman at North Carolina, play for Bill Belichick, all those things. I've heard the NFL, NIL stuff too, but you have Grunkemeyer that's waiting there, and they're for good reason, for very good reason. Tyler Warren is QB2 now. Honestly, he was pushing for reps there. He was pushing for both, kind of joking here. But the way they've utilized him, it seems that way, right? It sucks that Beau is leaving, but I can't blame him for looking to go elsewhere for a better opportunity to be a starting quarterback. And you only have 4 years of college football. Now, because you had the COVID eligibility, right? So you had 6, 7-year quarterbacks that were journeymen, made some NIL money on the side too. But it's not like the NFL, where you can't be a journeyman, you can't go willingly into quarterback battles. You have to make a decision in the 4 or 5 years traditionally, right? I want to preface that. Traditionally, you have to make those decisions in 4 to 5 years. And Beau's looking around and saying, okay, this didn't happen according to plan. The plan was for everything to succeed, and Drew goes off to the NFL for 2025, goes to the NFL draft for 2025. And since it's looking like he's coming back for 2025 and would go in because he'd be out of eligibility, he has to go back. He has to go in for the 2026 NFL draft. Does Beau want to be a backup quarterback and a gadget gimmick player at Penn State for all of his years? You have the transfer portal. I also think about NIL. If he lands at a Power 4 school with a solid brand, he could make some serious NIL money if he becomes the starting quarterback. I don't want to pencil him in because he probably will go into a quarterback battle wherever he ends up. Maybe not at a group of 5, but if he wants to take his chances and say, I can be a starting Power 4 college quarterback, he's going to get into a quarterback battle because he's going to be new to the system. Immediately, I had Locked On West Virginia, Mountaineer Paul, reach out to me and say that, Beau Pribula would fit at West Virginia. Well, Andy Kotelnicki's not going there. That was one of the presumed talking points going into the offseason. If Kotelnicki had taken that job as the head coach, would Beau Pribula had followed him to West Virginia? Strong possibility. In an alternate universe, that definitely could have happened. Grunk trains with Aller's quarterback coach, and the QB coach likes Grunk's football more when he throws. Yeah, they do. They do train with the same quarterback coach, actually. That the QBX and everything. Seems to be a funnel into Penn State, right? Drew Aller and then now Ethan Grunkemeyer. So there's a good relationship there with their quarterback coach and Penn State, and it's worked out pretty well. Everybody liked the video. I appreciate that, Sam. Thank you. I'm just here to talk about Beau. I like talking about Penn State football and all the what ifs and hypotheticals, but I appreciate that. Where is he going? Good question. There's going to be interest. Anybody that needs anybody that's quarterback needy. So I hope that Beau makes the right decision for himself and goes to a program, goes to a coaching staff that is going to help him. Don't just take the first place that offers or reaches out or anything like that. Do your due diligence, talk to coaches and see how you can maximize your skill set. And he needs to go to a system where it's going to be Andy Kotelnicki is one of a kind. So I can't say, just find another Andy Kotelnicki. It's not that easy. It's not going to be like that. You can't just find another Andy Kotelnicki, which is why he almost landed a head coaching job in this cycle here, but shut all of that down. But for Beau, Andy Kotelnicki's system does benefit him a lot. So I can understand where Beau's coming from. You feel bad for him because he was the Penn State guy. Oh, he's the next Trace McSorley, born and raised in Pennsylvania. He bleeds blue and white truly. This was the storyline that's set up perfectly, but not all stories have a happy ending. Not all stories have a happy ending, and that's where we are. North Carolina. Bill Belichick. I don't know what their quarterback situation's like. I really don't. Interesting move not to finish the season. Yes, but I understand it. I'm not going to fault him for that. I rewind it a little bit if you want to go hear my thoughts on how this affects Penn State. It's not good news. I'll compare it to SMU. Preston Stone, the backup quarterback, and he's gone. That was a quarterback battle between him and Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings ended up winning the job at the beginning of the season. After games 1 and 2, they decided to move to Jennings because Preston Stone was getting reps. He was the starter last season. He's entering the portal, but he's staying with the team. So that is a big difference here. SMU's backup quarterback, Preston Stone, is going to stay with the team. I don't fault Beau. I really don't. It's so complicated because if Penn State does, and when, I would like to think when, they go on this deep postseason playoff run, right? The transfer portal closes at the end of December. I think it closes December 28th. I'm not sure. Maybe the comments can help me out with that one. I don't have that date off the top of my head. But I think it closes at the end of December, which means if Penn State makes it to the semifinal, right? The semifinal after the fact. So they go through first round in 6 days here. Quarterfinal, semifinal is after the transfer portal closes in the winter window. You can go back in the spring, but if you intend to be the starter somewhere else, you're going to have to get acclimated with the new program. You have to get a head start somewhere else. All Beau Pribula knows is Penn State and James Franklin and these offenses that they have built here. It is smart on his part personally to go to that next program and get situated and get acclimated. So we'll take another break, get back to the comments and some final thoughts here as we wrap up this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is also brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It is that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it is guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you will love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. And then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. And we'll wrap it up here. Hopefully I didn't lose my spot in the comments section. Oh my goodness. I appreciate all your comments. Truly do. Hopefully this gives up the cap space to get another receiver. So ironically enough, I was doing my notes for my next show for just talking about the transfer portal and what Penn State's plans are and all the names that are linked to. So I guess I can kind of wrap that up in this last segment here. If anybody has any other thoughts that are burning about Beau Pribula, by all means, drop them in the comments section here. Beau Pribula, I can't say that he was making a significant amount of NIL money. And with the way that there's the court case and everything else, right? There's going to be all this litigation moving forward. Penn State's going to have a salary cap of $20 million. So my point in short is that Beau Pribula leaving in the transfer portal opens up probably some NIL funds, but nothing to break the bank, if you will. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting because I was going to go on a bit of a rant here, so I will tease it. But Penn State's offense, I think of the fact that them losing Tyler Warren and not having the immediate production. So Drew Aller's most likely coming back. Again, nothing is official until it's official. But this Beau Pribula decision obviously makes us think otherwise, right? Makes us think that Aller will return. Okay, that's good. You're getting a third-year starting quarterback back with Andy Kotelnicki, the guy that, like I said, unlocked his potential. They get to work together for another year. Offensive line's in good standing. I actually like that Penn State is going to be returning everybody except Sal Wormley, at least for the most part, barring anything crazy. But yes, even Nick Dawkins, a redshirt senior, can come back because he has the COVID eligibility. So the offensive line, you have them going. You don't have to worry about that, right? You don't have to build them through the transfer portal. So Penn State's got depth and then some at offensive line. But you lose Tyler Warren, who is every bit of your passing game. You get Trey Wallace back. There's the hope that Tysier Denmark becomes that breakout player. You have Amari Evans. We know that Penn State has to lose Julian Fleming because he's out of eligibility. And then what does Nicholas Singleton do? What does Katron Allen do? That's kind of the big deal in the scheme of this. Is Penn State going to have playmakers that are difference makers? Because what if Singleton, like a KJ Winston? I've shared my 2 cents on KJ Winston. Winston going to the NFL in the event that, oh, well, he's not going to be a second-round pick anymore. He might be a third or a fourth or a fifth. I don't know that everyone understands what that equates to. So KJ Winston getting, let's say, 5th round. Let's just say 5th round. Get selected probably, because I think he's going to get selected 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Someone's going to draft him. He's not going to go undrafted. But because of the injury and recovery, and he has limited game film, but it is really good game film, somebody's going to select him. If he gets taken in the 4th or 5th round, that's still a $1 million NIL deal. And Penn State isn't paying a lot of players. So was Penn State prepared to pay KJ Winston $1 million plus in NIL? Probably not. And the same kind of can be said across the board when it comes to the transfer portal. They still need to think about what are they doing? Can they get Nicholas Singleton to come back? It seems like Drew's coming back, so that's one box. Katron Allen, Singleton. You have to make sure everybody else is happy. What about the defensive side? Because Penn State, I don't even think Penn State's biggest issue is getting that elite wide receiver. It's figuring out what's going on at defensive line. You lose Abdul Carter because he's going to be a top 10 pick. Okay, prepare for or a top 20 at the very latest, but he will show out at the combine and pro day. And then that's going to get him an even bigger payday. So unless Penn State is prepared to pay at least $5 million for an NIL deal, Abdul Carter is not coming back. So he's earned that right. Let him go to the NFL. But in that process, all these players are eligibility. Devon J. Thomas, Amin Vanover, Smith Vilbert. That is a lot of people. And then you have Zane Durant and Denai Dennis Sutton, who could look and say, okay, KJ Winston's getting a head start on his NFL career. He's going to potentially make more money going as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick. That's where I'd put, I think Denai Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant are in that same window of, they could be, depending on the combine and pro days, they could be 2nd or 3rd round picks. So if Penn State's not prepared to get competitive with its NIL, with its own players that are presently in-house, you have to start with the players that are currently on the team that could come back. Ohio State did that. Guys like Denzel Burke and JT Tuimoloau, and then they went and got a player like Caleb Downs in the transfer portal and a Will Howard, a Travion Henderson, and Emeka Ibuka. All those guys outside of Downs and Howard, who I named because they came in from the portal, they had to offer competitive NIL just to get them to stay. And someone like a JT Tuimoloau was a 1st round pick, and they paid him enough to come back. So what is Penn State doing in the process to convince Zane Durant, deny Dennis Sutton? Obviously, you have Drew Aller coming back, so you did something to convince him. But what about Nicholas Singleton? Because if Drew Aller doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to, or a complimentary ground game, or a complimentary defense that's going to be able to help him out, then it gets a little tricky. And maybe Drew Aller's decision wasn't the best. As good as him and Andy Kotelnicki are as a quarterback offensive coordinator duo, if you don't have the assets around you to help you out, and yes, because football's a team sport. I know, rocket science, crazy, right? It's not going to work. So Penn State has to figure out what it's doing to continue to build around Drew Aller, because then this move is completely meaningless. So we'll see. That's just the beginning of my rant. I'm going to have more on the transfer portal, who they're targeting, wide receivers, defensive tackles, everything in between. That'll do it here. Beau Pribula is off to the transfer portal. If you're just joining this late, he is not going to be with the team for the college football playoff run. I encourage people to go rewind to the first segment and listen back to my thoughts and analysis on why that is a big deal for Penn State going into the postseason. Thank you so much for checking out this live episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate each and every one of you. I would not have this platform without all of you. So thank you for allowing me the privilege to talk about Penn State football, wrestling, men's basketball in this setting. And we'll have more coverage of all your favorite Penn State sports teams here on Locked On Nittany Lions.